friends. I'm Gwen.
And I'm Jacqueline. Welcome to Talk Bookish to Me,
the podcast where friends get together and talk about books.
Happy Monday and welcome back to Talk Bookish to Me. Today we're spreading the word and our appreciation for libraries. If you didn't know, National Library Week is coming up. It's from April 4th to the 10th.
The theme for National Library Week is Welcome to Your Library. This promotes the idea that libraries extend far beyond the four walls of a building and that everyone is welcome to use their services.
During the pandemic, libraries have been going above and beyond to adapt to our changing world by expanding their resources and continuing to meet the needs of their users. Whether people visit in person or virtually, libraries offer opportunities for everyone to explore new worlds and become their best selves through access to technology, multimedia content, and educational programs.
Before we jump into today's topic, we always talk about what we're currently reading. And Jacqueline, you know, I just texted you yesterday. So we talked in our last episode how we were doing the backlist readathon, and I crushed it, guys. I read 6 books in 6 days, and I was so proud. So everybody just give a round of applause for me because I totally deserve it. And Jacqueline really crushed it, working like full time, 5 books. Like, that was amazing. But guys, I have not read anything since then. And I have 3 books that I've kind of sort of started. And I actually think it's to do with my mental health right now, which I'll get to more towards the end of the episode. Let me talk to you about the books that I've kind of sort of started. So I have The Wall of Winnipeg, in Me by Mariana Zapata, and I'm only 60-ish pages in there. I have Strange Weather in Tokyo by Hiromi Kawakami, and I am 30-ish pages in there. And then I'm also reading In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. And I have no idea because I didn't put a bookmark in, but I'm like probably 20 pages in there. So, and it's not that I'm not interested in these, because I am, but I'm just not interested in reading right now. So there's that.
Yeah. Yesterday, Gwen was like, anybody else having a hard time after the backlist readathon? And I was like, nope, it's just you.
I was like, of course it's just me. So yeah, so I'm in the middle of not in the middle, but I'm in the process of reading like 3 different books. I don't know which one I'm actually going to finish. It's a struggle, guys. What about you, Jacqueline? Please tell me you're reading something.
Yeah, so I'm actually almost done with 2 different books. So before,
wow.
Before the backlist readathon, I was actually reading Do No Harm by Christine McDonald, which came out in February. And I'm doing that for this TBR reading vlog that is based off of reading arcs. But unfortunately, Do No Harm had already come out before I got to finish it. But the other 2 books in that video are going to be arcs from March. So I need to kick my butt into gear and read those.
I know it's almost the end of March. Can you believe it?
I know. I'm having such a problem because they're arcs, they're physical books, and with working, I can pretty much only read audiobooks. That's the only thing I can do. Yeah. So anyway, the other book that I'm reading, because I'm almost done with Do No Harm, and the other one that I started is an audiobook because I was driving yesterday and I just needed something while I was at work. I was like, well, I'm wasting my time because the backlist readathon, I was reading every single second of the day. I was like, wow, I'm wasting time right now. So I started Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey, which is actually going to be a book discussion in April in my online book club. So I was like, you know what? I'll just get ahead and I'll listen to that because who doesn't like Matthew McConaughey's voice? It is very, very good because it's a memoir and I love those. I think I figured out those are one of my favorites now. But his voice is so amazing. So it's he's such a great storyteller. So the stories are really intriguing and then his voice is super amazing and it's just a really good time. So I'm almost done with that. I think I only have 40 minutes left of that. And I think I only have probably, maybe 20 minutes left of Do No Harm. I don't know. I'm right at the end of both of those.
Wow. So. I guess we're flipped because sometimes you're not reading and I'm reading a lot and then vice versa, whatever. Yep. Anyway, National Library Week is an annual celebration highlighting the valuable role libraries, librarians, and library workers play in transforming lives and strengthening our communities.
Actress, author, and activist Natalie Portman will shine a spotlight on our nation's libraries as the honorary chair of National Library Week 2021. She will help highlight the essential role libraries, librarians, and library workers play in serving their communities, especially during challenging times.
So they do have a series of like kind of events, like a little bit of a schedule, like celebrations that they're doing. So highlighting some of the celebrations during National Library Week. On Monday, April 5th, the State of America's Libraries report will be released, including the top 10 frequently challenged books of 2020. I always think that's a very interesting list. On Tuesday, April 6th, National Library Workers Day, a day for library staff, users, administrators, and friend groups to recognize the valuable contributions made by all library workers. On Wednesday, April 7th, a day to celebrate our nation's bookmobiles and outreach services. And it was previously known as National Bookmobile Day, but new branding is coming soon. And on Thursday, April 8th, it's Take Action for Libraries Day, a day to rally advocates and support libraries.
Make sure you follow the American Library Association, ALA, and I love libraries on social media, and use the hashtags #National Library Week and #LibrariesTransform. All of this information will be available in the notes of today's episode.
So I thought it would be fun to share like some of our early like library memories. And my first library memory is of the Aiken County Library in Aiken, South Carolina. And I looked up pictures of the library recently because I always had like this like grand vision in my head of what it was. And when I looked it up, I was blown away. I was like, wow. What a beautiful building. And it just really like did bring back those memories because it was kind of like such a vague memory at the same time. But you know how sometimes you build something up in your head and then you look it up or something like that and you're like, yeah, no. But yeah, I looked it up and I was just really impressed. So yay, that was awesome. What's your earliest library memory?
There was a really, really cool library, or it was just like really big, and it had this like glass, like round dome at the top of it that I remember in Kentucky when we lived there. I was like 11 at the time because we actually didn't go to libraries super often because with being homeschooled, my mom actually like bought a lot of our homeschool curriculum, and like the books like kind of came with that curriculum. So we didn't really read a lot of outside books because we were already reading like all of the books that came with our schooling. So I don't remember going super often, but I remember going to that library because I had to write like a state research paper, or like it was like about the state. I had to do this. It was like 6th grade. And I remember that was kind of like the first time I was learning how to like look up things. Like it's so weird to think that like Google wasn't a thing back then. Like you couldn't just Google like the state bird of Kentucky.
Right.
Like, I had to like look in a book, and it was like so hard.
I mean, I remember when I was in elementary school or whatever, and then we had to do like little like book reports or whatever, and you needed additional facts. Like, Google, like computers were not a thing.
They weren't.
And we had an encyclopedia set.
Yep.
And I remember we had to like look up things in the encyclopedia. Like, what?
And you definitely had to know how like to spell things in alphabetical order. Like
goodness.
You couldn't just guess.
That was the worst because, and I hated how my mom, well, she was my stepmom, but I hated how my stepmom would be like, well, sound it out. And I was like, but words aren't, that's not how it works. Because she always wanted me to look up words in the dictionary when I was writing something.
Yeah.
And I would be like, but I can't look it up if I don't know how to spell it. Like, this is, it makes no sense at all. But yeah, so libraries have come a long way. Libraries have computers in them now.
Yeah,
like,
they do.
How awesome is that?
Yep.
So moving very much forward in time, after college to the present day, I do have a library card still, and I do sometimes check out physical books, but definitely not as much as I used to. I tend to buy physical books and then borrow audiobooks. I would say I borrow ebooks, but I don't really like ebooks. I tend to borrow more books physically during the summer though. That's like if I'm doing like a fun project, or I'm just like, oh, I don't feel like maybe I'm going on a vacation, so I'm saving for that, so I'm not buying books, so then I'll borrow books from the library. But yeah, I use my library apps a ton. I use Overdrive, Libby, which is basically like Overdrive but with a facelift, and Hoopla. And using these apps, I have access to a ton of audiobooks, and Hoopla is actually a great source for comic books and graphic novels. Pre-pandemic, I also went to the library book sales at my main library branch once a month. They had it like every other, or like the second Saturday or the third Saturday of the month or whatever. And it was a really cheap and fun way to stock my classroom library and my own bookshelves. So I miss those. What about you? What's your current library usage like, Jacqueline?
So actually, about like 5 or 6 years ago was actually when I did start getting like really into libraries, but it wasn't for me at first. It was because I was a nanny, and the little town that I was a nanny in, there wasn't a whole bunch of stuff to do. And the library had like a really good kind of children's program, like story time. And so I had started taking my little nanny kid to story time. And after that, like I kind of we got her a library card, and we would check out tons of books because she loved reading. And then I ended up like started homeschooling her. So like we put a bunch of stuff like, all together. We used the library so much. And at that time, I was also trying to figure out what hobbies I wanted to do because I wasn't working as much, because in high school and college, I had zero time to read. Like I hadn't read from probably when I was like 14 till I was 23. Like there was a huge time span that I didn't read. And so we were really, really poor back then because we had just gotten married. And I was like, okay, what are hobbies that I could do that won't cost anything? And so that's when I got myself a library card. And that's when I started reading. I think I read like just the popular books that I had heard about. So like Twilight and 50 Shades of Grey, and like books that I would never pick up now. Like it's weird how like you figure out your reading tastes. But I started doing that, and I just like, it was like a light bulb went off where I was like, wow, this is one of the only like hobbies that you could do without really spending any money. Like as long as you return them appropriately, which, I do not like people that don't return the books because I'm waiting for them, okay? But like if you think about it, like what other hobbies can you really do where you don't have to buy equipment for, where you don't have to pay for a class or something like that? And so after that, we actually moved to a town that had a bigger library system. And oh my gosh, like there was probably like 6 or 7 libraries all in the same branch. And you could, pull holds from anywhere. And they, like that system was just so good. So they got a bunch of new releases in. And I was just, just a couple years ago, I didn't even own any books. Like I was just reading everything from the library. Now I am blessed that like people do like send me books. I get books from publishers and stuff like that, and I buy a couple of them, but I am still a huge supporter of the library. And now getting into audiobooks, like I use Libby probably 90% of the time, especially since I'm listening to almost all audiobooks at the moment. So I just like really love the library and love that it kind of made me find like how much I enjoy reading, and I didn't have to feel that I couldn't start up that hobby or like start getting into reading again because I didn't have money for books.
Yeah, I think that comic books and graphic novels using the Hoopla app has been like a lifesaver for me because they're usually so expensive, and it takes you like no time at all to read them. Yeah. And if you've never read, like if it's a series I love, I'm going to go buy it because I am a collector. So I do like to have the whole series and stuff. But if it's like something that I hear someone talk about and I'm like, ooh, that sounds interesting, but I've never read anything by that, artist before, I will try to see if it's on Hoopla. And it's like an ebook. It has all the color illustrations and everything in it, and it's really easy to read. And then if I really like it and I continue on, then maybe I'll consider picking it up. But I love the library apps. Like that was such a smart move. Maybe not so much a cheap one. So we're obvious fans of the library and the library system, but are libraries bad for authors? That's what we're here to talk about today. We posted a poll on Instagram asking if you thought libraries were good or bad for authors, and 100% of you said good. So how are libraries good for authors? Libraries offer authors two things. One, they can buy their books, which nets the author some royalties. And two, they offer exposure. And I think that's like the biggest thing that I think of, allowing the author to gain a new audience who might buy their books the next time rather than borrowing them.
Yeah, those are the big factors. So when Gwen and I started talking about we wanted to do an episode like about libraries a couple of years ago, when I was definitely a minimalist with books, and I mean my whole life, but yeah, I didn't have the money to spend, and I felt like I got some backlash from people saying that, oh, I'm not supporting authors because I'm not buying their books. Like, for instance, like I love Colleen Hoover, and so they were like, well, why would you get a Colleen Hoover book from the library? If you love her, you should just buy her books. But I'm also not a rereader, so to me, usually buying books is not something that I'm going to do. I mean, I do buy them and then I immediately like reswap them or sell them or do something else with them. But I wanted to do research for this episode to actually figure out, because I never knew the correct answer to this. I mean, I thought I was supporting authors, but then I was like, oh yeah, they're right. I'm not buying their books. Like, am I like a fake author supporter?
Am I a fake fan?
Yeah. Am I a fake fan? Like, don't tell Colleen Hoover I'm getting her books from the library. Yeah. So I started doing research for this episode, and oh my gosh, you guys, there was so much stuff that I didn't realize. Like, number one, do you guys even know where the books come from? Like, for the library? Like, do you even know how much an author makes? Like, and how they do book deals. Like, I didn't know all of this stuff. So we're going to go through some of that and just kind of like pinpoint, like, are we actually supporting authors by using the library system or not? And so first off, when the library does get books, they buy them from a book distributor. So that's not even the publisher. Like, they don't buy them straight from the publisher. The publisher is selling them to the book distributor, which would be like a bookstore or Amazon, or I think the one is called like American Library Association. So like specifically for the library, there is usually a royalty share between the distributor and the publisher on the sale of each book. So that's how the distributors make money. So because the publishers are selling books through the distributors, for every copy that's sold, the author is already getting their full royalty. So how that works is when an author is going to write a book, and obviously like a publisher knows who they are, which is really hard. I figured out, like, you can't just be like, hey, publisher over here, I'm writing a book right now. But if they do offer you that, they give you what is called an advance. So they kind of like try and gauge how many copies of the book that is going to be sold. So say that they think, I don't know, 5,000 copies of the book is going to be sold. They're going to give you that money in advance to cover that. So say they give you, I don't know, $10,000. Once your book is actually selling, you're not making any more money until that $10,000 has already been made by the publisher. So if the publisher like kind of thought wrong and less of your book is being sold, like, you're not making any extra money as an author. What that means though is that the library isn't paying the author directly, and that means that also it doesn't matter if you're buying a book from the store, because those royalties have already been paid by that bookseller, or if you're getting the book from the library, because the library has already bought that from a book distributor, which the royalties have already been paid.
I guess the caveat of all that is that yes, the author, like, let's say a library buys 2 copies of a book. If they buy those 2 copies, yes, the author got the payment for those 2 copies that the library got. But let's say that the library didn't buy any copies of the book, and then it was like a really anticipated book, and like 100 people went out to the store and bought it.
Right, which is a cause of concern that I found while doing this research, is that an author is only making a measly like 7% up to, if they're a really popular author, maybe 30% of the total cost of the book. So they're only making like $4 and $5 here and there.
I just can't even imagine, like, it's your baby, you've poured your heart and soul, and some authors spend like 10 years writing a book, and then you make like $4 if someone buys your book.
Yeah, and that's because a lot of people are involved in the creation and distribution of the book. So it's like the publisher pays the author in advance in order to purchase the rights of the book. Then they have to pay the editors and the formatters and the illustrators and the printing press.
God. And the artists that do the covers. And
yes, exactly.
Oh my goodness.
That's why also when you see like indie publishers or like indie authors, their book art isn't the best, or maybe the format of their text in the book isn't the best. It's because they're kind of cutting costs with that, because it's not a main publisher that's kind of forking out that money.
But I do think with technology the way it is, we are seeing indie books that have like better covers than ever, better like format than ever. But there are still those ones that you get, you're kind of like, ooh, you can tell this is indie.
Yeah. So one of the things is like, yes, a library might only be buying one copy of that book, but if it's a popular book, usually once they get 4 or 5 people that are like, you know, holding on it or trying to check it out, they go in and they buy more. So that is going to be more sales in the long run. But then also, it's not uncommon for like those books to get worn out pretty quickly. I think that it said that it's usually about a 20 checkout rate. So like after it's been checked out about 20 times, the book is kind of falling apart. So they have to buy a new copy to replace that. So then that's
wow, that's
more,
sad. People need to take better care of their library books.
I know. And that's after they put all the, you know, plastic on it or whatever, you know?
Yeah, no wonder they do that. They're like, can you imagine if not like 2 uses, they're like, oh, throw it away. Or like, what do they do?
Yeah. The other thing is libraries actually pay more for the books than all other bulk buyers. So bookstores actually receive like a 40% discount from the retail price. So the retail price is like the price that's printed on the back of the book, whereas libraries only receive a 10% discount. So they're actually paying more. Yeah, than other book buyers.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
So like if you go to Barnes and Noble, when they buy the book, and I actually, my neighbor, she is a book buyer for Barnes and Noble. And she has told me that like maybe, because I was trying to ask her some questions for this episode, but Jacqueline kind of covered it all. But yeah, so when she's buying the books, she's getting them super discounted for her store.
Right.
But then libraries.
So that way they can make
But I wonder if that's to offset the cost, because maybe bookstores are selling more than like libraries are like lending out the book. This is, I mean, I feel like we could talk about this all day because it's so interesting to me.
Yeah, it does just depend. It said that, you know, like maybe a bookstore is buying like 3 copies. If they don't sell those copies, they go in the trash.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, so that is kind of like sad that like it's all like a numbers game, which is very unfortunate because like authors have gone through such hard work to like write these. And I feel like book sellers are just kind of like, well, that didn't make us money.
Yeah, sometimes they do go to like discounted, like you'll see books at like the Dollar Tree, or you'll see them, you know, sometimes you'll go to the thrift store like Goodwill or somewhere like that, and you'll see like brand new books with the line, you know, the line at the top. So they do, but not all. Yeah. I mean, not as many that don't sell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
it's
the
kind
other
of sad.
Yeah, with using the library system, yes, maybe they did only buy 1 copy of that book. Now, there are books that maybe have never gotten checked out, which is fine, but think about that. Every single book in the library, they've already paid for. So
that's true.
I mean, I highly doubt that there's a book that like, oh, the only sale that they had was at the library. But fun fact, there's more libraries than Starbucks. So
that's
there
very
are a lot
cool.
of libraries.
That's very cool. That's good to know. We still treasure our libraries.
Yes. And then with borrowing from the library, like say, Gwen, you are trying out a new author. So you go to the library, they do have that book, you read it, and you love it. You are probably going to go buy a copy, or you might buy your friend a copy, or you might tell 5 other people and they might buy copies. So yeah, like you said in the beginning, like the word is being spread. So it's kind of like, you know, try before you buy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So
I probably need to do more of that, honestly. Like this episode is inspiring me. So
yeah. Plus, the other thing is what's the difference between a library buying a book, the author getting those royalties, you borrowing it, compared to you buying a book, the author getting the same amount of royalties, like they're not getting more because you bought it at full price, but you let a friend borrow it. Or you go and you resell it, or you swap it. They're still not getting those extra royalties of it being used multiple times.
Right.
So it's the same as a library.
Whereas if the library has more people borrowing it, they're going to buy more copies.
Right.
Smart.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about the print books. What about like ebooks, audiobooks? What about that?
So those are a little bit different in a bad way.
In a bad way.
Yeah. So we talked about like the library is getting only like a 10% discount on like hardcover, like physical books. Whereas when they get like audio or ebooks, they're actually paying for a license, and that license only has a certain amount of uses over a certain amount of time.
Okay, this is what I have always said this to my husband, because and through your research, and you were like linking me some of the articles, which, by the way, we will have all of Jacqueline's hard-earned research in the notes of today's show, like where she got this information, so we can definitely like shout out those people that did the initial research and stuff. But you were linking me some of these articles, and I was reading through it, and it blew my mind. It was like, so never give a library a hard time because you are on a wait list a mile long for this audiobook, because that is, I'm like, it's an audiobook, like it's a file share, like give me the audiobook, like how hard is this? But I didn't realize that like these royalties, and you're licensing it for only so many times for so many people, and I was just like,
yeah,
it just blew my mind.
So let's look at some average prices. So on average, if you're buying a print book, usually they're around, $25, like when you go to the store. If you're buying it on Amazon, it's probably around $17 or so. If your library is going to buy a print book, like from a vendor or distributor, they're going to pay around $14 because they get like, that measly 10% discount there. But if we're talking about ebooks, if you bought an ebook from Kindle, that would be around $13. But if a library has to buy an ebook, they're going to be paying almost $46 for one ebook. That's only one license of an ebook, and they're going to have to keep rebuying that anytime the license expires, or if there's too many uses. Like you can't just buy one single license and use it for years and years for hundreds and hundreds of people. There's different, it just depends on whatever the license is for that one.
3.5 times more than if we were to buy it just by ourselves, like on Kindle or whatever.
Yes.
Whoa.
Yeah. And then it's even worse for audiobooks. So if you are going on to like Audible or something and buying an audiobook, it's around $27 or so. If your library is buying an audiobook, it's $70.
Oh my gosh. And that's what I use all the time from the library.
I should just be adding up how much money my library is spending on me.
Wow. I have my bullet journal right here, and I will tell you how many audiobooks I have read so far this year.
That's a good one.
Yeah. I'm going to look because I am dying to know now. I have read 29 audiobooks.
I've read 12 if I count this month so far.
And I oftentimes, I think there's only been, all of them have been, I've had the physical copy. So I went out and purchased from the bookstore the physical copy. Yeah. And I listened to the audio through my library. So
and it doesn't even account for, like, there have been, I think, 2 audiobooks that I have started this month that I was like, oh, I don't like this book, whatever. So even though I only listened to like 10%, or maybe you checked it out and you didn't listen to any of it. Yeah, for you checking it out, that still counts towards their licensing agreement.
Oh no. Yeah. I feel so
now I'm making you feel real guilty.
Oh no, I'm still a DNF queen. I will never stop DNFing.
Yes.
But oh no.
Yep.
Wow. I thought like, how like sometimes like if you finish it early, you can return it early so like more people can check it out. I'm like, is that a good thing now or a bad thing now? Oh my goodness. So I am curious. Like I wonder how many, like how, I guess different books and different who you get it from, license it from. It's different amounts of times that you can play it or whatever.
Yeah, it is different.
Nuts.
And I've heard
$70. Can you imagine paying $70 for an audiobook?
No thanks.
There is no way.
Yeah. And the other thing is I've heard from some librarian friends that you shouldn't feel guilty for checking out books and not reading them, because that actually does give the library more funding. Like the more books you're checking out, they're using those numbers so that way they can say, we've had
still need the money.
300,000 checkouts this year. Last year we only had 150,000 checkouts, so we do need more money.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't feel bad for using your library system, like even though yes, it is unfair that a book distributor is paying less money than a library has to pay. When that doesn't even affect the author, they get the same amount of royalties. What we really need to be talking about is the publishers and how much money they're taking from the authors. But that might have to be another topic for another day.
I would like to pose the question again. Do you think libraries are bad for authors? Obviously, I say no. If
Right.
they're making the same amount, and especially like you said, just like the word of mouth alone. Yeah, I feel bad for libraries now. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
I mean, and just I didn't realize that is, you think, why does a library need so much tax money? They already have the books and like people are borrowing them because of these, because we are leaning towards our apps and not able to go into the buildings and like borrow the books. So a lot of people are leaning on ebooks and audiobooks during this time, and they're paying a lot of money. I wonder what like 2 years ago, what their like ebook, audiobook checkout looked like as opposed to 2020 to today. I mean, oh my goodness.
Yeah, actually, yeah, if you think about that. I mean, maybe they're buying less physical copies because more people are using ebooks. So maybe they're trying to save that money on the print copies to go towards the ebooks. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It'd be cool to like actually like sit down and talk with a librarian, like, to be like, can I pick your brain?
I know. We have so many more questions. So I definitely think we need to touch on this topic again. Like maybe when things do like open up a little bit more, maybe we could like interview our libraries.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Librarians and stuff like that. So if there's any librarians out there listening that would love us to interview you for a future episode, definitely let us know. I know you talked to me about this Chrome extension that you use.
Yeah, so I'm going to link it down in the description box, as well as like Gwen said, all the articles that I had gotten all this information from. Hopefully it's all true, but I'll put them down there so you guys can like see for yourself. But this Chrome extension, one of my friends had shown me it before, and I was like, wow, why haven't I not been like using this before? This is from like chrome.google.com, and it's called a library extension. And so you download it to your Google Chrome, like that's what I use on my computer as my web browser, and it's a little extension that will open up inside your Goodreads and Storygraph and things like that. So that way, when you're looking at a book, like say you type in like all the boys aren't blue. Yeah, you're looking at that. Yeah. It's going to come up with the libraries that I had like told it when I downloaded the extension, like my zip code area.
And it's a free extension.
It is free, yeah. And it's going to come up with those libraries, and it's going to tell you like what libraries have that book checked in, how long you have to wait, how many copies they have. You can literally click it right there to like put it on hold or check it out. So it's super helpful because instead of opening up like Goodreads or the Storygraph and me looking for the book, and then I have to go to my different library apps and then I have to go look for it, it literally has it all together. So like Hoopla, Libby, your actual library, all of it's there together. So it's a super helpful extension, free, totally free, and we'll have it linked down below.
I'm going to have to try it out.
You definitely need to.
I know Jacqueline's been using it. I definitely need to jump on that bandwagon.
Yeah,
so.
It's like one less step that you have to do is like, go look for the book somewhere.
Nice. Well, I think that was a super interesting topic. Thank you so much for doing the research for that episode. Like I said, if there's any librarians out there that want to be interviewed for a future episode, we would definitely love to continue supporting our library, our librarians. Like I said, the notes and the information in this episode is lengthy, so take some time, look through that stuff. As some of you know, I use Anchor to host my podcast, and I couldn't be more pleased with their service. It made it super easy to go from being a beginner that had no idea what in the world I was doing to someone that still has no idea what I'm doing, but it looks like I do because Anchor does all of the hard work for me. If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, let me give you a rundown. Basically, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need all in one place, and here's how it works. Anchor lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to the most popular listening platforms, including Spotify, with a single tap. Anchor is also the only place you can publish video podcasts to Spotify. With Anchor, creators can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads like this one and podcast subscriptions. You want to hear the best part? Anchor is totally free. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Okay, so I mentioned at the beginning of the episode that I haven't been having the best mental health. And that's because, like, my back has been literally killing me.
Oh, no.
And I go to a chiropractor on a bi-weekly basis. My husband goes on a monthly basis, and I go bi-weekly. And for some reason, I don't know if it's because I'm not as active, now that I'm staying home for years and trillion years or whatever, or what. But my back was just hurting so bad, and it is still hurting. But I haven't been getting good sleep. And I have trouble falling. I mean, once I'm asleep, I'm getting maybe 4 hours of sleep a night, which is good, but I have trouble falling asleep. And as soon as I wake up, my back the pain has never gone away. So I've been dealing with this, I would say, since the weekend, and it's Wednesday now. So it's been about 5 solid days of just back pain. And it was actually before that too, but then I had a chiropractor appointment, and then that helped. And then I have my chiropractor appointments usually on Thursdays. So Friday it was good, and then Saturday it started hurting, and then it's just been hurting since then. Like I said, for about 5 days. Tomorrow's my normal scheduled appointment, and I was like, I can wait till tomorrow. And I was like, no, I can't. No, I freaking can't. So I emergency called my chiropractor. I was like, please tell me I can squeeze in today. And he squeezed me in. And my back actually does feel a little bit better. And I'm talking a little bit better, maybe 5% better. It's still very tender if I move a lot. And the thing is, there's no comfortable position. Standing up, it hurts. Sitting down, it hurts. Laying down, it hurts. Left side, right side, laying on my back, laying on my stomach. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. I'm just always in pain. And so I started thinking today about how it was affecting my mental health. And then on top of all this, my allergies are starting. So normally when I think it was those sunny days that we had last week, and I was outside a little bit. So I have seasonal allergies, and it's grass pollens, and ragweed is my big one. Instead of runny eyes, runny nose, itchy eyes, things like that, I get little blisters, tiny little blisters, but all over my arms or wherever it's itching and stuff. And then when I'm scratching it or itching it, it's eczema. So then I have eczema, and then that's no fun. Oh, no. But anyway, back to the pain. So I was thinking about how much pain I was in, and I've only been dealing with this for 5 days. And I was thinking about people with chronic pain, and I was just oh yeah, I cannot, because so I'm just thinking about all those people out there that deal with pain on a consistent basis, and sending you lots of love and good vibes and good energy, because you definitely need it. Because I've been so emotional. I've just been super I think it's just the lack of sleep and just the constant pain and all. So I'm just how those people out there deal with that. I just don't even know.
Well, that's probably why you're not reading, because it's really hard to focus when you're in pain. So that's what I was thinking.
I just can't. So I mean, last night, I think I was up at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. I was still up. I was tired, but I couldn't lay down and go to sleep. So then I tried to sit at my computer and get work done. But then I'm working at 2, 3 in the morning, which is not healthy. And I don't know. So I've been kind of a mess. So there's that. So if you're struggling out there, you're not alone. I'm dealing. And it's funny because a girl that I watch on YouTube, Janae, she just did this whole thing where she's been super emotional and just dealing with it lately. And I was I didn't feel alone. So I feel sharing that little bit of my story might help somebody out there. That's why I wanted to share it, totally. Because you're not alone. We're all struggling with something. Yeah. So, Jacqueline, what's going on in your corner of the world? I do have to say, I was so happy to hop on the podcast today, though. So that was my one bright light of the day.
Yeah, so. You're always so happy and positive that I can never tell when anything's wrong.
Well, I do, because I just, I do want to come off as that happy person and stuff like that. But yeah, I've just been struggling this week. Poor Daniel. My husband, I've been crying nonstop. I could literally cry at a drop of a hat about simplest, stupidest thing.
Don't cry. I
won't. But I totally could.
Yeah. Well, I have kind of some exciting news, I guess. I actually went to a fertility appointment yesterday, which it's not my first time. We went to fertility appointments 2 years ago and got an IUI. And then since then, I haven't been back to do anything. But I don't even know if I I guess, did I talk about my SIBO on here before? I can't remember. But
Yeah.
I have an online doctor, and I found out that I have something called SIBO, which is like a bacteria.
Bacteria. Something.
Yep. Weird stuff. Okay. So I've been on antibiotics for that. And that doctor was kind enough to send in a referral to a fertility clinic. And so this is a different clinic than one that I've gone to before. I actually was going to like a women's health center that had a fertility doctor. So it's not like they were specialists. So I went yesterday and I did get some testing done, but I still have more testing to do like at the end of this week or into next week, depending upon how my cycle goes, because like it's just all a calendar thing. Like it always has to work out exactly perfectly with your cycle, and that's frustrating.
Yeah.
But
bodies are great.
Yeah, but hopefully this is going to go better, because I felt like the last fertility place that I had gone to, I didn't feel like they actually cared about me. I felt like they cared more about the money. And for them to have had me do an IUI before getting fully like testing everything kind of irritates me, but I didn't know better back then. And I've done research over the years, and then even talking with my new fertility doctor yesterday, she's having me do a lot more testing before we even decide what to do. Like she, she's waiting for all of our tests to come back before she even says a chance that we might have. And so I like that she's kind of like, diving into everything. Like, we're going to test everything. We're going to cross it all off. We're going to say, okay, let's look at the big picture now. So I am excited for that. It's been hard for me the last couple of weeks with like mental health, because I have a really big family, and 3 of my sisters are all pregnant right now together, which is just fantastic.
I mean, which is great. We're not, because we know how exciting they are.
Yes.
But when you deal with infertility,
when you feel like the
really
only
do
sister
feel
left.
alone.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, I am the lone wolf.
Yes.
I am the barren one. Okay.
Right. And it is a little
hard.
It's frustrating because, and I know that there's situations where other people, like you said, you're thinking about people that are dealing with chronic pain. You don't know what that's like until you start dabbling in a little bit of pain, and you're like, wow, I didn't think about this before, how other people are living. Well, that's how I feel with infertility, is that people just don't realize that it's a thing. They just get pregnant at the drop of a hat or by accident.
Yes.
And, they're not thinking about what it would be like until you go through it. And so it is frustrating, and I know Gwen understands because she's been here. She is still going through it. We're all just going through it together.
We are. We're just going through it.
But it's like, I wish sometimes that people made a point to try to understand, but that's a lot to ask. So unfortunately, sometimes I'm very disappointed with how people treat the situation, but I can't really ask them to treat it any differently, because there's things that I
totally get what you're I totally get where you're coming from with that. I think that, like I said, everybody's dealing with their own thing. And I think that, like I may seem happy on the outside all the time and like everything's great, everything's wonderful, but really like it's been a tough week for me.
Yeah.
And I mean, me and you talk all the time. So yes, I know you've been dealing with like everybody at work getting pregnant.
Everybody on Facebook.
Everybody on Facebook's like, yay guys, great. Rub it
especially
in
with
a little bit more.
When these holidays come up, they're always like, oh my gosh, St. Patrick's Day, or like there's a bunny in my belly, and I'm like, oh my gosh, stop with the cheesy pregnancy messages, please.
Look, it's the leprechaun. Like, go away.
My pot of gold is in my belly.
So my point is that I do like to look as brighter days are coming. I want to know, like, I am going to my chiropractor. I went to my chiropractor today. I'm going tomorrow. He's closed on Fridays and the weekend. So hopefully the appointment tomorrow will help a little bit more. And then I'll probably go see him on Monday. Maybe even he has a masseuse that comes in his office sometimes. So maybe that. I need to call my allergist and get my medicine for that. I can do that. Jacqueline, you're looking into your situation with a new fertility actual like clinic this time that deals, like, it's a special thing, and that you got good vibes from it, which made me so happy, because I feel like that is such a personal thing, and that you need to feel comfortable with the doctor, comfortable with, like, you just need that good karma when you walk in, you know, you got to feel good about it. And when I was dealing with all of my fertility stuff, just knowing that there was like a plan of action, and that I was like making strides, like even though I wasn't like getting pregnant, like I wasn't getting pregnant during that time, I was making headway. I had a list of to-dos, and I was checking my little boxes off as I was going down the list. That made me feel like I was making progress. I was doing something. So I'm sending you all my love with that. Thank you. And
hopefully we have great updates in the future. Backs that don't hurt.
Stay tuned for more updates. Thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode of Talk Bookish to Me. We both enjoyed sharing our love of the library with you, and are looking forward to celebrating National Library Week, April 4th through the 10th. Check the details of today's episode to find out more information.
If you need to reach us, email us at talkbookishpodcast@gmail.com, or find us on Instagram at talkbookishpodcast. Until next time, happy reading.